Good morning, podcasters. Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2026, and today, Empowered Podcasting Conference 3. We're going behind the scenes with the team to share how this community was built, what we've learned along the way, and why EPC is becoming so much more than a conference. So if you're listening live on Clubhouse, hit the share button, top right-hand side of the screen, and share it however Clubhouse lets you. And if you're catching us via podcast, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc., please share this with a fellow podcaster. And now give us about 30 seconds, and we'll get things rolling. Thanks for being here. The Podcasting Morning Show is powered by Ironic Media, helping podcasters launch, polish, and grow great shows. And by Content Creators Accountant, helping creators build real business behind their content. Good morning again, Podcasting Morning Show. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host, Mark Ronick, and I got to look at two screens to share who my co-hosts are today, so bear with me if I forget somebody. We have here today on stage Ralph Estep, BC Babbles, DR Fay, Sid Meadows. We have Dan Schultz from the audience, and we also have my partners in crime for the Empowered Podcasting brand, Jason Cercone and Rich Perry. And I know yesterday at the end of the show, I teased that we were going to do the mailbag, and we're pivoting. I think it's time. I talk about empowered podcasting a lot on this show, but it's kind of sporadic. It's here and there. And I thought, let's just actually talk about the origin story, because we have a lot of newer listeners that probably don't really know the origin story. Talk about those lessons that we've learned and what's to come. And what we're going to do is the team is basically going to take over and lead the charge with questions. So I won't be necessarily leading the charge, but I'll still navigate a little bit here. But that's the way we're going to do it today. And first, I want to get into our Spotlight series, where we feature a podcaster from our community and give you a quick taste of their show. Today's Spotlight comes from Susie May, host of Wander World School, helping families plan and fund slow and long-term family travel. That's their tagline. You may remember Susie's show from one of our first evaluation episodes that we did earlier this year. Susie's family lives between Spain, Colorado, and apparently soon Japan. It's why she can't make it to EPC 3 this year. I'm kind of bummed about that. And her show shares stories from traveling families and world school creators who, while also helping families think through the money and logistics behind long-term travel. So what we're going to do is play this clip, and as you listen to it, it's her trailer. Pay attention to how clearly Susie paints the world her audience wants to step into. It's travel, education, family, possibility, and real-world planning all wrapped together. So let me cue this up. Here it is, and let's listen to her trailer.
What if the whole world was your child's classroom? What if history wasn't a chapter in a textbook, but a walk through the ruins of Rome, or a conversation with a local artist in Kyoto? Welcome to the Wander World School podcast. I'm Susie, and let's be honest, traditional schooling isn't the only way to raise curious, brilliant kids. But trading the classroom for a backpack isn't always a walk in the park either. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and it takes a lot of coordination. Whether you're already a full-time nomadic family or just looking to inject more experiential learning into your next vacation, this show is your guide. We share raw stories, practical logistics, and honest conversations with world schooling creators and leaders and traveling families. Ditch the desks and discover the world with us. Listen to the Wander World School podcast on your favorite podcast player. Your next lesson starts everywhere.
That was Wander World School, and admittedly, I have a hard time saying it. I don't know if it's just me, but I do have a hard time saying it, and that's hosted by Susie May. What stood out to me is how clearly this show knows who it's talking to. It's not just for people who love to travel. It's for specifically families wondering what it might look like for the world to become part of their child's education. So, and I also like how the clip doesn't make the lifestyle sound effortless, right? Like, it's realistic. Susie says trading the classroom for a backpack can be messy, it can be unpredictable, and it takes a lot of coordination. That, for me, makes the show feel more grounded and useful, especially for parents who are curious but probably have a lot of practical questions. So you can find it at wanderworldschool.com. And I wanted to also open this up to the team if anybody had any feedback or thoughts.
I did, real quick.
Go ahead, Ralph.
One of the things I would do in her trailer is she says the name of the show too quickly. And if you don't know what you're listening for, you're like, what did she just say? I would be more specific and slow that part down a little bit because she's really trying to reinforce the brand. So that's the only critique I have of it. I just think slow that down a little bit because if I'm new to this, I'm like, what did she just say? What?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It comes from you, Ralph, who I know you have shared with us that sometimes you feel like you talk too fast and you've been working on slowing things down. So that makes sense that you're noticing that.
I am learning pacing, my friend.
Yeah. Cool. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, DR.
Well, I don't have any criticism or anything for it, but I remember back when we were doing the audit, and I just got so wrapped up. I mean, I don't have any kids, but I can imagine those kids getting such an incredible education, going from country to country, eating the food, living in the communities. They're so much smarter than what we could have given them in any kind of classroom situation. I mean, I know I lived in Japan for like 10 years and I came back so much smarter. So, yeah.
Yeah, kids today, I feel like, are smarter. Jason, I know you have she's probably a teenager at this point, isn't she?
Yeah, she's 16 going on 17 here in a few months.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know about you, but I noticed when my kids were in their teens and now in their early 20s, just how much further along I feel like they are in life than I ever was.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a conversation with her. Folks probably don't know my situation. She lives in Virginia and I'm in Pittsburgh. So
Right.
We try to do our best to stay in touch with texting and FaceTime and things like that.
Oh, yeah, I know how that goes.
Yeah, and we had a conversation on Sunday, and I just, for whatever reason, having that conversation, I was like, my God, this kid is such an adult now.
Yep.
We were just talking about things that, like last week I felt like I was just looking at baby pictures and holding her in my arms.
Yeah.
And now here we are talking about just all these crazy things that are happening in the world, and she has her perspectives on it, and it was a pretty amazing conversation. So
Yeah, they are wise beyond their years.
yes, indeed.
But I imagine that this particular podcast kind of sidesteps all of those cracks that some of the kids, the modern generation, is falling into. I happen to think that the modern generation is probably lacking in social skills because they're constantly on their phone.
I've seen that, yes.
And it makes me think that maybe because of what this podcast is, that they're going from country to country and really soaking in the environment and everything, that maybe that's not going to be the case with the kids that she's raising.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important these days. That's actually one of my more proud dad moments. I remember a big thing that me and her mother have stressed to her is not being on her phone at all times. I used to point out to her when we'd be at places in public and we'd be sitting at the table eating, and I'd look around and everybody, including parents with their kids, are on their phones.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed her, this is not how it's supposed to be. What you and I are doing right now, sitting and talking and enjoying the moment together, this is what life is.
Yep.
And that stuck with her. And she continues to have that mentality and that mindset as she moves forward. So she'll be telling her friends to get off the damn phone and pay attention to me, talk to me. It's really cool to see.
I would love to know from Susie how she handles the phone situation, being on the road a lot, in the air a lot and all that. I wonder how she maintains that with her kid. That would be interesting. So that, again, wanderworldschool.com. Susie, thank you for your submission. Thank you for continuing to listen to the Podcasting Morning Show. And by the way, if you'd like your podcast featured on the Podcasting Morning Show, submit a 60-second clip we encourage you to use your trailer and not just a random clip from a random episode. So submit your trailer at podcastingmorningshow.com/spotlight. And if we select it, we'll play it on a future episode, just like we did with this one. Share what stood out to us and introduce your show to our community of podcasters and creators. So do that. Again, podcastingmorningshow.com/spotlight. Okay, so with that, I am going to hand the reins over to Mr. Estep, who's going to help navigate this interview since I'm technically in the guest chair with Jason and Rich. Well, we all have our own guest chairs. We're not sitting in the same chair together. And Ralph, take it away.
Very formal today, calling me by my last name. I'm not sure how to take that. But anyway, Mark, before we talk about EPC3 specifically, what do you think independent podcasters and content creators are most hungry for right now that this community is trying to provide?
Wow. There could be a lot of answers to this. And I'm going to go with one, and maybe my partners here will have some others. For me, I think it's about what podcasters need right now, I think, is simplicity. I think it's gotten very complicated or unnecessarily complicated, this whole podcasting thing. And I think that's one of the things that we can provide is when you're able to come to a conference like ours, an intimate setting, and sit with people one-on-one or sit in a room with, half the conference attendees and sitting at one of those presentations, it helps to calm things down for you. It helps settle things down and give you some focus and some direction. And I think that's part of this whole simplicity thing, is finding that focus, direction, and community. And when you can do that, I think you can do a lot more with your podcast in a more simplistic, easier way. That's
Jason, did you or Rich want to chime into that as well?
I'll piggyback off that. I think that's a great way to look at it, because there comes a point, and I hope, big thing I do with Bomb Track Media is, as well, as trying to get people to think about those simplistic points in the very beginning, because there's so much overcomplication of podcasting to the point where it makes people throw in the towel and pull the plug on their efforts way too early. And coming to a conference where you get to meet people that have walked the walk, they're continuing to talk the talk, it can give you some perspective that you may not have even knew existed. So I think not just from the conference itself, but this community as a whole is trying to educate podcasters on thinking about what's going to work for them, not getting wrapped up in the things that don't matter, like consumption of download numbers or trying to do too many things at once. Just pick a lane, determine your one target listener that you want to consume your product. How are they going to be impacted by what you have to say? How will your message help move the needle? And when it does, when will they turn to others and tell them they need to listen to you as well? It's a very straightforward path, but sometimes we throw these obstacles in front of ourselves that absolutely throw us off course. So I'm all about simplicity.
for sure. Yeah.
Rich, did you have any comments you want to make, or do you want me to move on to the...
Wait, Rich, you got to unmute.
You are muted, my friend.
I'm only on half a cup of coffee right now.
Welcome to the morning show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. It is very possible my answer is perception is projection, but I think the one thing that people really are looking for also, in addition to simplicity, would be finding those like-minded folks, people that get me. You know, oftentimes with creators, we have friends that just don't understand what it is that we're doing. Why are we talking into this microphone all the time? Why do we keep making pieces of content? Why do we keep, sharing these ideas? And why are we always giving away all of this information for free? That could be very lonely at times. And sometimes if you're not a creator, you don't get why that individual is doing that all the time. Very possible perception is projection. I know that was one thing that I was looking for.
I like that. Perception is projection. And I know that we're going to get into the origin story. So maybe I'll just wait until we get there, because I relate to that term a lot. And I think there's something about that term that really launched the whole idea of this conference. So whenever, I don't know if we're getting into that now, Ralph.
Well, gentlemen, I guess before we go there, I had one question. Do you think that content creators right now feel isolated? they're putting a lot of stuff out into the ether, but do you think right now they feel isolated and that's one of the reasons that you think this community is so valuable?
Anyone want to take that? I don't need to answer every question.
Isolation might be one word to look at it. What I think it's isolation by, I don't even know how to define this. What I think I see a lot of is folks that are having struggles. They go to a specific social network. I've been playing on Threads a lot more lately. So sometimes I feel like because people are just trying to get a post to get over on Threads, they're asking questions, and I'll play this game just to see what podcasters have to say. But when someone asks a question about, they're saying they're having struggles and they're looking for a solution, they've got 95 different answers that get thrown at them. And it's like, how do you filter that? How do you determine what is the right course for me? So you open up the floodgates and you let all of this data pour in. It's hard to determine what the best course of action may be. So maybe there's a slight element of isolation there, but I would look at it, if I'm that person, I compare it to the first time I ever walked through the expo hall at Podcast Movement and had you just go see all these tables and everybody's got something that's going to make your podcast go to the next level, quote unquote. And you walk out of there going, what the hell do I do now? Because there's just so much to choose from. So I think there's an element of isolation in that respect, but there's still just so much data being thrown at you that it's hard to determine what's the best course.
And Jason, I think that's a real good segue into back in 2024, Mark. What was going on in your mind and in your business when you decided to create that first Empowered Podcasting Conference? What were you thinking at the time?
So I would say that goes back to the whole perception is projection. It took me 15 years to go to a podcast conference. In other words, I was podcasting for that long, never thought I needed to go to one of these conferences. And then when I finally did, that's where I met Jason at Podcast Movement in, 2021 or 20, was that what it was, 2021?
2021,
yeah. I met Jason there. And look, thank goodness, because it was me, Jason, and Travis, and because I was having a really hard time really finding a core group to hang out with. Right. And so I had that with Travis, with Jason, and I felt, though, a little isolated or maybe a little overwhelmed. And I think I was projecting that to myself and to others, just feeling like this feels cliquey. It feels weird. And I think I was just projecting my own discomfort, maybe a little bit of social anxiety, perhaps. And then when I went to some others like Podfest and some other podcast movements, I think I was going in with that perception. And so, of course, you go in looking for those kinds of things. That's what you're going to end up seeing a lot of. And so all that to be said, it inspired me to create a space where people didn't feel that way. So whether I was right to feel that way or not is almost insignificant, because ultimately I was inspired to create a space that made people feel really welcomed and feel like they were a part of something special. And I'm not knocking Podcast Movement or Podfest to say that they don't go in with the intention of making something special, but I really went into this wanting to create a space of community. And although the vision was to eventually get to a size like Podcast Movement, I knew the first one wasn't going to be a Podcast Movement. And so I embraced the idea of smaller. And then once I got there, I knew that was what I wanted this conference to be always, is something smaller, more intimate, so that people could really get to know each other and feel welcomed.
Mark, what do you think was the biggest risk that you were taking back there in the early days of doing this conference? I mean, I understand it from a monetary standpoint. I mean, and I don't want to share anything too much, but I mean, there's a monetary side to this as well, right? I mean, that was a risk part, correct?
Yeah, the monetary part probably was the riskiest. Yet, I think that first year, I wasn't intimidated by it. I knew it was a risk, but I wasn't intimidated by it. And if some of you remember, Lloyd George was kind of my partner in crime for that first year. And so I felt like I had a little bit of support. I knew that I wasn't on the hook entirely financially, like he was in it with me. But yeah, that was probably the biggest risk. And then I think internally, the big risk that I felt was I was putting my reputation on the line. I was, and still am, trying to really establish myself in this industry as, for lack of a better term right now, an expert. And I felt like, wow, if I put on this thing and it flops, it's going to make me look really bad. That was right or wrong. That was how I felt at the time.
So what surprised you most once people actually showed up? Like, I imagine you went through this feeling of like, are people going to come? Are we going to sell any tickets?
Yeah.
But once it happened, and what surprised you the most when people actually walked in the door, you're like, wow, this is actually happening.
Well, that's just it. That was really it. It's like you see the names and the numbers on a screen and you think, okay, something's happening here. This is going to be something. But once you walk in and you experience it and you see not just a lot of people there, that's cool to see, but it's what happens once they're all there in those rooms together. That was where I got really inspired, felt really empowered. Don't pardon the pun, that's an intentional one. But yes, I think that was it. It was just seeing people come together and enjoying themselves, seeing so many smiles on people's faces, laughing, and then going in those rooms and seeing people sitting, listening to those presentations intensely and intently. Like, it was something magical that you just had to be there and experience to realize, wow, yeah, it's all come together now.
Now, Mark, you're talking about the shiny, pretty part, but I'm imagining under the hood there was some stuff that wasn't so shiny and pretty. So what were some of the behind-the-scenes challenges, especially in the first one, maybe even going into the second one that you didn't expect that you come to learn from now at this point going into number 3? Well,
I think what's weird is that with this conference, the first year felt way easier than the second year, right? And a lot of people are surprised when I tell them that because they think, you've never done this before, you've never put on an event like this before. The first one's got to be challenging. And again, I think because I had Lloyd there, we had our volunteer team there, I don't think it wasn't as stressful as the second year. The second year felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. And as a lot of you know, going through the journey with me last year, I was really stressed out because I couldn't find a lot of sponsors that actually paid money to help put this event on. By 6 weeks in, or 6 weeks leading up to the event, we only had like 20 tickets sold. And so there were multiple times where I felt like maybe I have to cancel this thing. And again, that went back to that same thing of feeling like my reputation was on the line. I felt like I probably should have canceled. And at the same time, I felt like there's no way I can cancel now because I think that's going to make me look even worse. And I kept trying to remind myself the same advice I give to other podcasters about their small-sized audience. I just got to focus on who's going to be there and make the best of that. So, yes, I was still stressed out by that. But, then the tickets, Rich joined on late into last year's game, and he really helped. And so did Jason, for that matter, with that final push where tickets started coming in. And things started to feel like they were coming together. But that was an extremely stressful time because it felt like nothing was falling into place leading up to that event. And I know Jason and Rich can probably speak to some of that too, at least speak to some of my stress. I know that they took it on.
Oh, yeah. You were a wound up ball, my friend.
Yeah, I was.
It was a lot of pulling Mark off the ledge during that, especially in that last frame of the lead up. When I think we all just collectively agreed, you know what, we're here, we know what we need to do, let's just buckle down and go to work.
I can't remember, did I come to you guys at all at one point and say, like, okay, guys, I think we might have to cancel this? Did I actually say that?
Oh, 100%. There was a call that's how it started, like a team call. I'm like, what? That's not what I was coming here for. And then, to my surprise, there's a couple people on the call that were supporting it. I'm like, hold on, no. And I remember after that, you and I had a call on our own. And I even said, this is, to give a little bit of backstory, I planned a big event here in Pittsburgh back in 2017 or 18 that I thought was going to go over a lot easier than it did. Because, not to go into too much detail, I was in the craft beer world at that time doing marketing and ambassadorship for different breweries. And the original craft beer week that had rolled out here had steadily declined over the years, and everybody kept saying someone needs to step in and take over or do something different, but it was all talk. And I was tired of talking about it, and I said, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to step in and do this. And we put together a team, and we started organizing it, but my big mistake was that instead of focusing on the smaller events, this is, lessons that carry over to 2026 where we are with Empowered Podcasting. Instead of putting all the attention on building really great smaller events, I wanted to do that plus have this big kickoff event that was like this big festival of beer and wine and spirits and all these things. And that was stressful AF and killing me pretty much literally. And because I knew what I was on the hook for. There was reputation, like you said, Mark, but there was the monetary side, like Ralph mentioned. And leading up to the event, it was just so low in ticket sales. We were out one night, and people were going up to my girlfriend saying, "What is wrong with him?" Like, they could physically see the stress that I was under. And it was that night that I decided to pull the plug on that event. And when I was able to put my focus back on the smaller events, everything was better. And I started thinking about that when we were doing Empowered Podcasting, especially when I got involved with this more deeply, because I said after that experience in 2018, I'll never do this again. But I saw what EPC could become, and I wanted to be a part of that. But I know you and I had that conversation, Mark, where it was like, maybe we don't have the stomach for this. Like, maybe this isn't the right area to be in. But at the same time, we've come this far. We've put in so much work. We've got people that are looking forward to being a part of this. Let's just put our heads down and make the most of it. And Mark, you bringing that analogy back that we put into podcasting all the time is perfect. You've got a captive audience that's proven they want to be there. Pay attention to them. Give them the best possible product. And I can't speak for you, Mark, but I know we've had this conversation. When you see this unfold in front of your very eyes like we did, that's when you know, okay, we did something good here.
Yeah.
You got people coming up to you and saying, this was great. When's next year's event? I can't wait to come back. That's the stuff that you know your hard work was worth it, and that makes you want to work even harder for the next event.
Yeah.
Mark, let's talk about this right now because
hold on one second,
into
Ralph. So sorry to cut you off, but I know DR had a question, and I see Gabe has joined us on stage, and I'm guessing maybe Gabe wants to ask a question or chime in. So with that, I'll go to DR, and then we'll check in with Gabe, and then back to you, Ralph.
Okay, so the three of you, are there specific tasks that you do that the other two don't do? What's the breakdown?
That's a great question. So, yeah, I'm technically, if we're going by titles, official titles, technically...
Hey, Mark, before you answer that, can I add something to this? Because DR kind of jumped where I was going.
Okay, good.
And it'll tie in directly.
Okay.
So going into EPC3, you decided to bring on partners. If people don't know that, they're listening right now, they have no idea where DR is going with this. So let's start there, Mark, is you made a decision to be not just Mark, you went into having partners. Why did you make that decision? And then let's follow up with DR and saying, how are you distributing the workload and all that sort of thing? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, I think I've kind of alluded already to it, right? Like I decided to bring people on because, well, especially these two specifically, because they really came to the conference's rescue, right? Like I was at my wit's end and they stepped in or stepped up, right? Jason was already a part of it. Rich couldn't be at first because he was dealing with a full-time job that he was transitioning out of. And then once he transitioned out of it, he had some free time and said, Mark, I'm in. What do you need? Right. So when I saw that dedication, like that's what this conference and this community is all about. It's really being dedicated to it. And when they showed me that and then followed through, there was no question. I mean, and honestly, Rich, I remember he invested as a sponsor too. And he came to me and said, Mark, this is my way of also saying like, I want in on this long term. Like that was his way of making a little investment toward becoming a partner in all this. And I totally loved that, respected that. So that's why, because these two really stepped up and proved to me that A, I can't do this alone. And I don't think many people can. And B, these were the right people for me and for this community by proof of what they did for EPC2. So that's why. And then we all kind of just established our roles, as we started having serious talks about working together. And I was given the role of CEO, founder. Obviously, founder, I think, is very appropriate. Jason took on Chief Operating Officer. So he's really kind of overseeing all of the logistics, all the different elements of the podcast. And then Rich is CMO. So he's handling the marketing and sales side of things. So he's helping. And we all also, we're also interchangeable, right? Like we don't really stay fully in those lanes because we're just trying to support each other.
Yeah, I've always said that the titles there's a little bit of ceremony behind them, but at the same time, like we have these titles, but at the same time, what I've noticed working with you guys over the past year is that there is a collective care in place. We all want this to go well, so we are all stepping in on various aspects as if it's going to help move things forward. So whether it's finding sponsors or helping with social or helping with creating marketing material to go on the social medias or writing a press release or whatever is necessary. That's how I look at this. By any means necessary, we are putting together or working to put together the best event we possibly can.
Agreed. Yes. And by the way, I see John Jamingo in the chat. I'm trying to pull it up here. He said that he watched Jessica, and I can never pronounce her name, so please forgive me. I think it's Kufferman, pull her hair out and almost go bankrupt planning the She Podcast conference. COVID killed that conference. Yeah, that's awful. And I remember when the She Podcast conference was ramping up, and then I remember all of a sudden it was announced it was going away, and my heart broke for that community because I get it. And especially then when COVID comes around, that's going to really spoil everything for sure. So I feel that for the She Podcast community for sure.
Gabe, did you have a question? Did you want to jump in here, make a comment, or have a question?
Yeah, I was sorry. I'm trying to drive and get back into my routine. I've been on vacation for the last 3 weeks. So
Nice.
I apologize. So fortunately, I won't be able to make it this year. I wanted to. Logistically, it wasn't just going to work out. But have you guys considered like a virtual part of doing this conference and selling tickets virtually as a way to maybe create another income stream?
It's a great question, Gabe. I struggle with this, and I don't know. I'll also let Rich and or Jason chime in, but I struggle with this, much like I struggle with the idea if I'm going to do, which I know I don't do often, and I'm hoping to do more of, but if I do, say, a live workshop, okay, and a lot of people come, and of course, what's always the question asked when people are signing up for live workshops? Is there going to be a replay? Right? And I struggle with that because I want people there. This is a live thing, whether it's a live virtual workshop or a live event like we're doing in Charlotte this August. I want people there. It's designed to be an in-person event. Yet at the same time, Gabe, you make a great point. From a business perspective, it could be another revenue stream. But at the same time, I probably got to charge less for the virtual attendees. And yeah, it's still extra money, but like it's just the value is where the people are physically. That's the value of this conference.
That's why I don't struggle with this. I feel like we do enough in the virtual settings, like what we're doing today with our podcasting efforts, everything else that takes place through the computer. You lose, not saying you lose value, I shouldn't say it that way, but there's more value in being in the rooms because we talked about this on one of our live streams. Or maybe this is something we talked about when you guys joined me for my 100th episode, was the fact that the magic happens in the hallway. The magic happens when you're able to connect with people outside of the presentations, and maybe you make a friend that you can then say, this friend can go to this presentation, I'll go to this one, and then we can compare notes later. There's a ton of value in that, and it's incredibly hard to capture that in a virtual world. Not to mention the overhead that comes along with that. Yeah, you might generate a little extra revenue, but now you've got to stream that all those presentations.
Yeah, there is money involved in making that happen.
Yeah, and do people truly sit and watch replays like that? I don't know. That was one of I've always said COVID. Love how it normalized this type of thing where we can all come together virtually. Hated the virtual environment of trying to network and make those connections through a computer. It's just not the same impact when you're live in person.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump in here because I'm the money guy. I'm going to throw something out there because Nikki put in the chat, and I think she makes a good point, Tide Tutoring. No, you don't have to charge less. I agree with her. I don't think you have to charge less. I actually think that's a strategic mistake to do that. I think there is an opportunity here, which leads me to my next question. So what's one mistake that the three of you were in both of these prior EPCs? What's one mistake from the first 2 years that's directly shaped how you're planning this year? What are you doing differently this year because of things that you've learned from the prior 2 years?
I'd like to hand the mic to Rich because I think on the sponsorship side, he really took the reins this year and made it better than it's ever been.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
So I would say, and I can't speak for Mark, but just from knowing what I know, in the past, it sounded like, Mark, you were like, EPC was a conference and it was seasonal. So you had an off time of getting the sponsorships. Now we're getting the speakers. There was time when you weren't focusing on the conference. Right now, we are now thinking about the conference all year long. We were planning EPC 3 as soon as EPC 2 ended.
Yep.
Even though right now we are planning for EPC 3, I am still right now thinking about EPC 4, EPC 5, EPC 6, because I'm long-term. There's been some folks that couldn't be a sponsor this year because it wasn't in their budget, or maybe they allocated all of their budget elsewhere. Maybe we got to them a little bit too late. Okay, that's unfortunate. That sucks. But I'm going to keep those relationships. I'm going to make sure I'm still on their radar, because as soon as I can, I'm going to reach out to them for EPC 4 and EPC 5. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking long term, and I don't know that was necessarily done in the past, because it was very much, okay, we got to focus on this year. We got to focus on this year. Whereas now we are focusing on this year, but also next year and the year after that and the year after that. There's no stop time now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think with ADHD, that's where I struggle, is like I'm so narrow-minded in that regard, right? Like I am focused on the thing that's right in front of me, and seeing way past that can be challenging for me sometimes, depending on what it is. And in this case, challenging. So having partners that are speaking to my weaknesses with their strengths, I think that's what makes it work so well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll speak to just the overall logistics of planning the event. That was one of the big reasons why I wanted to get involved. Was from year one, I was just in attendance as a speaker, and I didn't have any part of the planning process, but I discovered almost instantly a couple things that could have been done better to help the overall audience experience improve. One being that we don't have 3 tracks for such a small event.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it very difficult for somebody to choose which event they're going to go to. And because the crowd is smaller, unfortunately, we had some speakers that had very small audiences to speak to. So that was a very easy fix to just say, let's cut this to 2 tracks and make sure the rooms are more full. And the second thing that I wanted to improve was the panels, because I was placed on a panel and it felt like a throwaway. It was like, well, you're going to do this now. I'm like, all right. Okay, well, what does that mean? And so it was important to me to make sure that everybody that is on our stage feels equally valued. It's not, nothing is less. If you're on the stage, you have a chance to make an impact, whether you're speaking through the panels, whether you have a presentation, a workshop, a keynote. We want you to feel like you're part of this and you are the lifeblood of the event. And that's why I took a very strong role in working with the panels last year, and I did, I think, a little less this year, but it was important to me to get with each panel and share expectations, learn what they wanted to talk about, and then basically give them the freedom to plan it and present it the way they feel comfortable, but not to feel like what they're doing is less, because it's absolutely not. There's a number of ways to skin the cat, and we want to make sure our audience is impacted regardless of what room they're in. So that, to me, instantly changed, and the flip-flop from year 1 to year 2 in regards to that, I had a number of people tell me how different it felt. And so I knew, okay, this is where we lean going forward, is making sure that each stage has value on it and the overall logistics of it flows smoothly so we can keep our sanity on the back end of it.
We haven't said once, if you want to get tickets, by the way, to Empowered Podcasting, go to empoweredpodcasting.com, and you can use a coupon code if you want 20% off. So you can use any one of these, EPC Mark 20, and Mark with a C, or you can pull out my name and insert either Jason or Rich's into that coupon code, and any one of those will get you 20% off. The reason why I'm sharing all three is because we have a little side internal bet who's going to sell more tickets with their codes. And right now, I think, Jason, you may be winning. Yes. So
well, actually, while we're talking about codes, what do you think? Let's pivot to a little bit as we have the last 15 minutes of this, because I really want the audience to understand what's in it for them. So let's talk about what that feeling should be when somebody leaves EPC 3 this year, when they're at the end of the weekend. What should they feel by the end of that weekend? What is the big takeaway that the three of you folks are trying to get them to feel?
I would say, if I'm going to put it down, narrow it down to one word, I would say community. That's the bottom line. I think, yes, you're going to get a ton of value, a ton of information. You're going to be able to walk away feeling empowered, feeling like, yeah, I can apply this stuff tomorrow if I want to, right? But I think ultimately having this community around you is what's really going to feel empowering. It's going to be inspiring and motivating. You're going to see people doing different things, learning from them and getting help from them, not just at the conference, but well beyond. That's what we're trying to build here, is this place where yes, of course, we all come together. I want Empowered Podcasting Conference to feel like the Super Bowl event. Right? Like there's games all year long, and the big event is the conference where we all come together, reunite, share what's gone on over the past year, and prepare for what's going to happen this next coming year. So ultimately, community would be my answer.
Yeah, and I think for me, the big thing that I always look at with these events, it's the networking aspect of it. And the advice that I'll give to anybody that's coming or thinking about coming, any event like this, you get out of it what you put into it. So it's important to come with even the smallest of agendas. Have a couple goals written down that you want to bring to the event and say, this is what I hope I can achieve when I am in these rooms. And who am I going to connect with? I saw that this person who I've listened to their podcast for years is going to be on stage. The great thing about Empowered Podcasting is you get the opportunity to connect with that person because they're going to be in the other presentations. They're going to be at the networking events. You're going to have opportunities to make that connection. So I think my word, it might be cheating because Mark said community. I feel like this is an extension, but improving the connection that you have in your industry, whether it's for professional reasons or for hobbyist reasons, your connections are going to thrive if you come to Empowered Podcasting and you start talking to the right people.
Jason, that actually leads me to a great question. So, and I went through this myself because EPC 2 was my first and very only podcasting conference I've ever gone to. So if I'm the independent podcaster and I'm looking at the landscape of conferences and I'm thinking from a practical standpoint, there's only so much money that I can spend. Why do I pick EPC 3 to be that decision point that I decide to go to this conference as compared to Podcast Movement or PodFest in January? Why do I pick EPC 3? Because I think that's really the thing that we need to focus in on is why am I picking this conference over the others?
I'll answer. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Charlotte rules. That was going to be my quick answer, but
yeah. So I would say especially, not only, but especially if you are new to conferences, specifically in podcasting itself, I think that it's a great starting point for a lot of people. Because again, you're not going to get the overwhelm. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but my belief is you're not going to feel nearly as overwhelmed at our conference, yet you're going to get all the same information. You're going to get all that networking in, build out that community. It's just a smaller scale, so it makes it a little less intimidating. So that's one. And then if you are an existing conference goer, I think that this allows you, again, to get more out of the experience. When I see these conferences with lots of people, you can get You can do a lot of networking. I can't take that away from you, but it's hard to really immerse yourself in the experience. Again, I'm basing this off of my personal experience, but it can be challenging to immerse yourself in the experience, figure out where to go, what to do. You can get lost at some of these things. You can get overwhelmed with the choices of the different tracks and the different presentations. This is all confined, giving you the same kind of experience, but enhanced. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I think my answer to this is the value for your ticket price is, to me, it's incomparable. I mean, to take nothing away from the bigger events. I know a story I've told was at Podcast Movement. I knew my big reason for going was networking. I wanted to meet people, and then I got to meet you, Mark, and that's led to what we're doing today. But one of the big things on my list was to meet Mark Cuban, because Mark Cuban was a speaker at this, and I'm a big Mark Cuban fan. Well, I went to his presentation, and the second it was over, he was gone. Off the stage, never to be seen or heard from again. And I hated that. I was like, damn it. Like, I didn't even get a chance. Like, I'm not going to bum rush the stage. Some people did that. I'm like, that's not a good look. I didn't want to be like that. I was hoping that afterwards he'd be out in the hallway shaking hands or something, and nothing. So I like the element of not only do you get to connect with your fellow creators, but the people on the stage are also creators, and you get to connect with them as well. So combine that with the fact that you get lunch on us on Saturday. You're getting drinks provided at happy hour on Friday. You get your first drink, thanks to our partners at Mopod, at our Thursday event. There's so much value built into the ticket. Not only will you walk away from this event full, because you got to eat and have drinks and be merry, but also full of knowledge and full of potential, because now you've made all of these new connections, and the fact that you can collaborate in-house. We saw that happen last year. People actually sitting down and recording while they were at the event. When we get home, let's connect and let's do some things. I mean, Courtney Reimer is a great example. I met her at the happy hour at last year's event. Her and I are great friends now. We've collaborated on podcasts. She's referred me a great client. It's amazing what can happen when you come to these events. So the value that you get for your ticket cost, I think it's hard to compare it to anything else.
Yeah, I think you're right. The food and beverage alone makes the value. You can't even compare it to some of these other tickets to these other events, because we do the lunch. We're going to have free drinks. Our party, the last night party, that party is going to have food, drinks, etc. There's a lot of value you get, not just from the speakers and the presentations, but even food and beverage is a big one. You don't get that at other conferences.
Mark, there's like a little push me, pull me kind of thing going on, because as a business person, I can imagine that you want as many tickets sold as possible. Yeah, let's make this big. But in your heart, I know that you want to keep it more intimate. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about that kind of little conflict within you?
Yeah, it's no conflict anymore. Maybe the first year I was a little conflicted about it, but not really. Yeah, if anything, the plan is if we outgrow what we're doing, because our space right now, I think the max is around 250, then we're going to create more events. We're going to do, so I know I spoke a moment ago about Super Bowl, but we may have more than one Super Bowl at some point. And as a matter of fact, it's already kind of in the works here, because we're going to be doing something with USC in California. They're going to do a podcasting conference there hosted by the university, and they've asked us to help curate it. So Empowered Podcasting, it's kind of a satellite Empowered Podcasting event.
Great.
And eventually we are going to do more of these as the community grows. Yeah.
That's great.
I actually, DRB, just for sake of time, we have attendees on stage, Sid, Janaid, BC, Ralph, etc. And I know Sid wanted to chime in on something, and I figure maybe we should hear a little bit from attendees instead of just us the whole time here. So Sid, I know you wanted to chime in. Go for it. Good morning.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys are going to be quiet for a minute. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, thinking about the conferences and the question around size and attendance and what I'm looking for. So the first conference I ever attended was Podfest Movement. It was here in Dallas. I did not make it to EPC one for lots of different reasons. I went to EPC two, which was absolutely fantastic. And I can tell you, as somebody that has been to a lot of conferences, went to a very curated event in March, I think it was March of this year. I'm a big fan of the smaller events because they're more intimate. It's the opportunity to, as Jason was talking about, connect with other creators, people that a lot of people in that room are going to be going through the same things that you're going through in building your brand and building your podcast. And I love the idea of being able to speak to have a conversation with the speakers. I mean, I was able to get a couple people on my show because I went up and talked to them afterwards and have built a relationship with Annika because of that and because I heard her speak, right? So I'm really excited about the intimacy of the group and glad to hear that when you get to that number, because I also get the math, that you're going to start more events. And I think that's a great plan. So that's what I'm looking forward to is the intimacy, the relationship building, and the ability to connect with people that we see so often just virtually. And there's just something about connecting in person that's really special. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Love that.
And then I did have a question for you, just really quick. It's kind of a smart ass question, by the way. I want to
Shocker.
know what the criteria. Yeah, my sarcasm has kicked in this morning. Okay, I really want to know what the criteria was for the speaker selection, especially the people doing workshops, because I'm like questioning some of your decisions around that, especially with this guy that's going to talk about monetization strategies.
Yeah, I think his last name is Meadows
Whoever
or something.
gave us
Yeah,
the most money got a certain.
We've done it so many different ways, and I'll let Jason share because he led the charge on that, how we did it this year.
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, the process for me, as I've said many times, I've asked it everybody, make it difficult for us. We want to see quality presentations come in, and my first run after this has just become my own little tradition. I light a cigar, I pour a glass of bourbon, and I sit down with every submission and go through them and determine what makes the most sense for our stage, and then that is what creates the first list. You know, a lot of that is to weed out some of the AI generated presentations, some things that just there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. This year we also we had that element, plus we had our creator partners that came on, our sponsors. That was part of the package, that they were going to get their opportunity to speak on stage as well. But overall, the idea is that we're trying to curate something that gives, I don't want to say something for everybody, and it's kind of a cliched term, but when I look at both tracks, I want my decision to be difficult as an attendee. Like, both presentations look so damn good. Which one should I be attending? And that's where I had said, I know I'm crossing wires in a number of different ways because I've had a lot of different appearances and conversations about EPC over the last few weeks. I was on the Charlotte Podcast Studios podcast, and we were talking about what you do to overcome that type of thing, and that was where their host Tay, he made the call. It's like, this is, you go to the conference, you make a friend, and you say, you go to this presentation, I go to this one, and then we'll get together later and we'll put our notes together. That way you increase the value that you're getting from the whole event, because you can't be in two places at once. So to create a lineup that has that type of aura, that's important to us. So we went over it very meticulously. Once the first wave was taken out, then we look at the next, like, these are the ones we want to focus on.
Yeah.
Let's put them in place. It's a fun process.
It's
a
tedious.
Stressful process. It's tedious, but at the end of the day, when you see it all come to life, that's when you know all the work was worth it.
Yeah, and Jason, so basically Jason kind of did that first pass, and then the three of us sat down together and went over that, all of the rest of the entries after Jason did that kind of first filter. And we literally talked about almost every single person that applied. So we went over that list, Rich and I, separately, and then we all came together, went through it, and handpicked all of the different speakers. Yeah, so that's how it went. And it's really hard to do, especially, again, when you're trying to build a community, especially an intimate one like ours. It's hard to say no to some people, right? Because we don't want people to feel rejected. It's not about like, oh, your presentation application sucked. Like, it's not about that, right? It's just about we've only got a limited number of speakers. We've got to try to pick the ones that we think are going to click the best with our attendees. By the way, I just saw John in the chat say that he went to our website to see what the ticket prices are, and he wrote, "You won't tell me unless I give you my information." I don't know about that. I think once you go to the website and you click any button that says order tickets, buy tickets, it'll take you right there and it'll tell you what the price is, I think.
I'll speak to what John's talking about. The form on the website, that's just getting started. It's not like we're not capturing your information from that. So it's not like you're going to get nailed with a bunch of emails after the fact. That's just the first step in the process.
I see what it is.
And it's not, we're not hiding anything. That ticket price is $269 right now.
Yeah. And maybe what we'll do, because of John's point here, maybe we should put the prices on this page.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing to hide here. Yeah, that's the number. Yeah, that's actually a good point. We should talk to Andrea about that.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
So I know we're running out of time, and I want to make it so a lot of our listeners are not privy to some of your posts that you are putting in Facebook. And because of that, I know that you're running a little short this year on volunteers. Is that right?
Yes, we are. Okay. Thank you, DR. Great segue here. Yes, and I shared yesterday as well. We basically had a group that had committed to being our volunteers. So it was like easy peasy. We were like, instantly we had our full volunteer group. And then they had to pull out due to some unforeseen circumstances, nothing personal. So we're kind of starting from scratch. And we want to fill up at least like 6 volunteers to have at the event to help with things like registration, help with, like a help desk kind of situation. If somebody has a question and needs some help, one of our volunteers could point them in the right direction. Those types of things is what we're really looking for. And in return, we'll give you a free ticket. You will have full access to the entire event. We will not take up your entire time while you're there. We will just assign you to certain tasks, maybe for a certain period of time, but you will get to enjoy the vast majority of the conference. So all you got to do is go to empoweredpodcasting.com, click the Contact Us tab that you can see at the top of the page, and let us know you're interested. And we will reach out to you. We'll have a conversation, make sure it's a good fit for everybody, and then we'll move forward from there. So, again, free ticket to this conference. Get the full experience. Just go to empoweredpodcasting.com and go to that Contact Us page and let us know.
And Mark, if I may, I know we're running out of time, but I said this yesterday on the live stream, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to say it again. If you, listener, if you are serious about getting involved in the community and you really want to make valuable connections and get to meet the speakers and get to meet other people in the industry in a way that, you want to get the most value out of the experience, volunteer. I'm telling you, you will meet some of the best people and be in the center of some of the best conversations just because you volunteered. Like, you will meet everybody and you will have opportunities to have those great conversations in a way that you wouldn't just being an attendee. I know that from experience. I've volunteered. I've been on staff for many conferences, and I've met some people just through being on staff or being that go-to person in the room. I'm telling you, volunteer. It'll take a couple hours, but you will have those great connections through those conversations.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate that. And I'm just going to do it like this, guys. To wrap up, if BC, Junaid, Sid, if you guys want to share, or Ralph, share anything about your experience there, now's the time. And otherwise, here's actually, I'll go to you, BC, in a second. First, Ralph, do you want to tease what's coming up on Tuesday?
Absolutely. So on Tuesday, we're going to have a special guest. Her name is Loesh Moodale. She's actually from South Africa, and she is a person that helps independent do-it-yourself podcasters find monetization strategies. So her and I made a connection through Pod News, and I'm really looking forward to having her on the show Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so come join us there. This coming interview was inspired by a story that we covered on a previous news and comment episode. So looking forward to that. Thank you, Ralph. And yeah, BC, final word, your experience or anything you want to say about empowered podcasting.
Yeah, super looking forward to being back this year. For those who don't know, I went last year, heard about it last minute. And since then, just to tell you how much I enjoyed it and I'm looking forward to this year, since then, this year, I've had a week-long stay at the Hyatt scheduled since like February. I think I got my ticket just around the same time, so months ago. I'm also a creative partner now with the conference, and I'm looking forward to seeing the people here who I'm pretty sure I met the first time I went, but I've connected with them more through the show, being on the show here, so that when I get back over there, I'll be like, hey, now I know who you are. Awesome. So, I mean, this will just be a great opportunity for any stage podcaster. You know, I'm kind of a train wreck of a podcaster. I'll be like low key, but I know that going to the conference here, even train wrecks like me are welcomed in every stage. So yeah, swing by, have fun, get your tickets now, not after the 15th, you know, before that race hits, and have fun. It's a great weekend.
Thank you. And thank you for saying that, BC. Tickets do go up for the final time next week. So if you're interested, now's the time. Join us, empoweredpodcasting.com. And thank you all for a great conversation. Jason, Rich, thank you for coming last minute. I know I asked you guys yesterday if you would do this, and here you are. So thank you for doing that. And I think I'm going to actually release yesterday's replay of Empowered Podcasting Live on tomorrow's episode of the Podcasting Morning Show. So normally we're not here on Fridays. We will not be live, but I will release yesterday's episode on our feed. So wherever you normally listen to the Podcasting Morning Show on a podcast player, that'll be there for you tomorrow. So until Tuesday, make it a great day, everybody. Take care.